Something big is brewing at the FDA, and it's about to change how new medicines get to you. For decades, getting a drug approved meant passing to massive, expensive clinical trials. That was the gold standard. But the game is changing, and it affects everyone from giant pharmaceutical companies to patients waiting for a cure. So, what's happening? The FDA is signaling a huge shift. Instead of always requiring two large trials, they're now open to approving drugs based on just one single, really strong study, especially when it's backed up by other data. This isn't just a small tweak. It's a fundamental redesign of how we prove a medicine works. Imagine the possibilities. Drugs for cancer and rare diseases could get to patients here sooner and at a fraction of the cost. But that's not even the most radical part. The FDA just launched a pilot program that could phase out animal testing for certain new drugs. Instead of relying on animal models, companies can now use advanced AI and lab-grown human tissues, or organoids, to predict a drug's safety and effectiveness. This is a massive leap forward, using human-relevant science to make better, faster decisions. When you combine this with other initiatives, like accelerated review programs, and the FDA's own internal use of AI to speed up paperwork, you see a clear pattern. The old, slow, sequential model of drug development is being replaced by a faster, smarter, more integrated system. So, what does this new FDA evidence paradigm actually look like? The old way was rigid phase 1, then phase 2, then to big phase 3 trials. It was all about proving efficacy through repetition. The new model is about building confidence through integrated evidence. Think one pivotal trial, supported by real-world data from electronic health records, plus advanced biomarker data. Instead of static, one-size-fits-all trials, we're moving toward adaptive trials that can be modified on the fly as we learn more. This aligns perfectly with the push for personalized medicine, where we're not just asking if a drug works, but who it works for. For the pharmaceutical industry, this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the upsides are huge. Faster development timelines could save companies hundreds of millions of dollars per drug. This is especially good news for biotech startups and venture capital investors who see a clearer, quicker path to success. Companies are now incentivized to get creative with their trial designs, using biomarkers to enroll the right patients from the start. But there are risks. This new flexibility can also mean more unpredictability. We've seen recent cases where the FDA's decisions have seemed inconsistent, leaving companies scrambling. And if a drug gets approved with less data, the burden of proof shifts. Companies will need to conduct much more rigorous post-market studies, known as phase 4 commitments, to monitor long-term safety. This means the risk doesn't end at approval. It extends across the entire life cycle of the drug. Now, let's talk about a critical piece of this puzzle that's often overlooked: the diagnostics industry. This FDA shift is about to cause an explosion in demand for diagnostic tests. Why? Because if drug approvals now hinge on a single trial and specific patient biomarkers, then finding the right patients becomes everything. Success is no longer just about the drug. It's about the test that identifies who should get it. We're talking about a boom in companion diagnostics, genomic profiling, liquid biopsies, and AI-powered diagnostic tools. These tests are moving from being merely supportive to becoming the regulatory enabling infrastructure for new drugs. Diagnostic companies will become essential partners. And we'll likely see drug and diagnostic development become completely intertwined. Of course. The most important question is, what does this mean for patients? The biggest positive is faster access to potentially life-saving therapies. For someone battling a rare cancer, cutting years off the approval timeline is everything. This new approach also means more personalized medicine. By using biomarkers to match patients with the right treatment, we can increase response rates and avoid giving people drugs that won't work for them. However, there's a potential downside. Approving drugs based on smaller or shorter trials means we have less certainty about long-term safety and rare side effects when the drug first hits the market. In a way, patients who receive these newly approved drugs become part of a real-world learning system. There's also a serious equity concern. If getting a cutting-edge drug depends on an expensive molecular test, what happens to underserved communities who can't get access to that testing? We have to ensure that these innovations don't widen the healthcare gap. Zooming out, this represents a major societal shift. The FDA is moving us toward what's called a learning healthcare system. Instead of demanding near-perfect certainty before a drug is approved, the new model embraces continuous evidence generation after it's on the market. It has a trade-off. Are we willing to accept more uncertainty in exchange for faster cures and lower costs? This is a tough ethical question, especially when we're talking about brand new technologies like gene therapies or AI-guided treatments. Different groups see this very differently. Regulators at the FDA are trying to modernize and become more efficient, but they risk losing public trust if approvals seem rushed. Pharma companies are mostly thrilled about faster, cheaper development, but they're wary of the regulatory unpredictability. The diagnostics industry is celebrating because they've just become indispensable. And patient groups are torn, excited for faster access, but concerned about the evidence. Investors are bullish, seeing faster returns, while insurance payers are cautious, questioning a drug's value if the evidence feels thin. Looking ahead to the next decade, we could see two possible scenarios. In the optimistic version, AI and real-world data dramatically improve the quality of evidence, leading to a golden age of personalized medicine where diagnostics are central to every drug launch. In the riskier scenario, some of these fast-track drugs run into safety issues, public trust erodes, and regulators are forced to tighten the rules again. The most likely outcome is a hybrid model, faster initial approvals, but with much stronger mandates for collecting real-world evidence after launch. Here's the final takeaway. These FDA pilot programs are not just small changes. They signal the end of the old, trial-centric model and the beginning of an evidence ecosystem model. The lines between clinical trials, real-world data, and diagnostics are blurring. Drug approval is no longer a single finish line. It's becoming a continuous learning loop. For pharma, this means faster development but a greater lifelong evidence burden. For diagnostics, it's a massive growth opportunity. And for patients and society, it presents both the promise of earlier access and the challenge of navigating a world with a bit more uncertainty. The future of medicine is being rewritten right now. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more insights into the future of healthcare.